Biden was at once extremely provocative
Right.
and on the other hand, extremely weak and befuddling and stupid and
Yeah.
looked easy to take advantage of.
Right.
And
I mean, it
so
was under
it was
Joe
a perfect
Biden.
recipe for conflict. Go
Right.
ahead.
It was under Joe Biden actually in I think in 2024 or 2023, October the 7th also took place. It was under his administration. And talking about October the 7th, which is back to the Middle East, focusing from the Russia-Ukraine to the Middle East, which is about the ongoing conflagration right now. So, Mr. Horton, about your appearance on Piers Morgan's program, you argue that United States of America should cut and run, in the words of Joe Kent, rather than remain deeply involved in another Middle Eastern conflict. If you were
Hmm.
advising President Trump today, what would a realistic exit strategy look like?
Well, this is the problem because the only effective exit strategy is too good and too simple and too difficult to sell. And that is just effing forget it, man. Just call it all off. Just don't anymore.
Yeah,
Ron Paul said, we just marched in. We can just come home. That's it. The whole thing is completely stupid. You know, they say, back to, the Europe reference,
hmm,
America has to be dominant in Europe or else Germany will be. Or else the German, French, Polish alliance or
it's the
whatever
same
will be.
analogy in the
And
Middle East as well.
that's right. In East Asia, we have to be dominant in East Asia or China
Right,
will be. Well, we have to be dominant in the Middle East or else Iran will be.
correct.
Except that, man, it was America that gave Tehran Baghdad. And
Right.
it was America that, for 15 years anyway, drove Syria deeper into Iran's arms in reaction to support for the jihadists there. It's America that gave Hezbollah all their battlefield experience in that same war in Syria,
Hmm.
fighting to defend a secular state against a bin Ladenite uprising.
Yeah.
Um, and America has also, I won't go into the whole litany, but if you've read enough already, I have the whole cause and effect in there about how, of course, it's all Bush and Obama's fault that Ansar Allah, the Houthi Shiites from northern Yemen, seized power in Sana'a at the end of 2014, beginning of 2015. And in fact, America's war that they launched against them with Saudi UAE and AQAP at that time really only helped to solidify their power, which, happens often, is happening right now in Iran. And so America, and by the way, when they supported the bin Ladenites in Syria, that also blew up into the caliphate that then invaded Western Iraq. And
Hmm.
then, but that was too big and too horrible and too embarrassing. So then Obama had to launch Iraq War III again on behalf of the Iranians and their friends in Iraq to destroy the bin Ladenite caliphate again from
Hmm.
2014 through 18. So America has done nothing but fight for Iran for a generation. Now, not deliberately, all these policies are meant to spite them, but in fact only backfire, except in the case of Syria. They finally got their bin Ladenite caliphate in Syria, but otherwise, every bit of this has backfired to benefit Iran. So it leaves us in a very difficult position to complain. And then look at this war. This war in the last half a year
Right.
is American foreign policy over the last 25 years over there, just writ small, right? Just
Yeah, yeah. And
compressed.
off of
Like
that, I wanted
what?
to ask you.
Sure.
So sorry to interrupt. Which is the point you were making. Which so looking at the current situation involving Iran, Israel, and the United States, what would you say constitutes a realistic definition of success, and is it actually achievable?
No, there isn't one. Forget it. I mean, look, the goals that they stated was they're going to destroy a nuclear weapons program that didn't exist at the time. They're going to overthrow the Ayatollah's regime by bombing enough of the government's, civilian and military forces that it would give the people a chance to rise up and overthrow their government on our behalf. Well, that didn't take. They are going to destroy Iran's missile force. But you know what? They saw that coming and they buried their missiles in many different hideouts under deep layers of granite all across their mountainous nation. And we actually cannot get rid of those missiles unless we're willing to send in millions of ground forces or whatever ridiculous fantasy daydream thing that ain't never going to happen. And so, and we demanded that they were going to, and claimed success would be measured by forcing them to cut off all their aid for Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. And they always say under their breath, and the Iraqi militias that are tied to the government that we installed there, and that 8-year horrible war that killed 1 million people that we fought for our regional adversaries. Oops. Part. And so, and then, look, by invading, they proved that they call their own bluff, essentially, right? They proved that American conventional military power in the Middle East is helpless. The problem with Iran is right there, and they're not floating away, right? It's called the Persian Gulf.
Right. They control a very essential choke point.
Yeah. And so the status quo before the war was, everybody's doing business. Now it's a situation where they've, first of all, given Iran essentially the opportunity to hit all of our bases and prove the worthlessness of all of our bases over there.
Yeah.
You thought Central Command headquarters was at the Al Udeid base in Qatar? Nope, it's in Tampa, Florida, because the Iranians can reach out and touch whatever they want in Qatar. And so, ixnay on all that. And then obviously Iran, they have to do, don't get me wrong, like, whatever, I'm not trying to take their side, but like, if this is just a board game of Risk or whatever, obviously they have to take control of that strait until they get the deal they want, and maybe forever, right? And there are other straits in the world where people got to pay a toll to get through there, including the Panama Canal over there in Malaysia and whatever, I forgot what they call it.
Yeah, the Strait of Malacca.
I'm sorry?
Exactly.
Yeah. And so, this may be another one of those from now on. And so, what would strategic success look like? Getting in a time machine and going back to, Waco Invasion Day on the 28th and not doing it. The whole thing is an absolute catastrophe. And this is a real problem, right? Is, in libertarianism, we have this thing called public choice theory, which is kind of silly, but it's just the economics of politics, right? And it just means that, well, in this case, the guy who started the war is the same guy in charge of trying to figure out a way to end it, even though he already lost it and already looks stupid. But he's a guy who's extremely sensitive about how stupid he looks. Right. And he's the same guy who gets to wake up and be the president every day for the next 2.5 years, and there ain't nothing that nobody can do about it. It's just, that is what it is. We can't call a no confidence vote and say, we really like you, but we just think that you're not the very best guy to handle this part of the policy now, right? We can't do that. We can't get rid of him unless he's literally senile enough that his own cabinet overthrows him because, like, no, he had a stroke and he's just out of there, right? That's the 25th Amendment. They talk about the 25th Amendment like it's just this option for a coup. No, the 25th Amendment is for when the president is incapacitated. Like Joe Biden should have been thrown out of there, right? But it's either that or it has to be a real felony, and it should be, but it ain't ever going to be war crimes. It has to be like he defrauded somebody in a shitcoin scam, right? Which I think maybe he is guilty of, but it has to be stuff like that where it's like, literally, this is just a day-to-day mundane penal code violation. That kind of a felony, high crimes and misdemeanors. It could be the most horrible policy. He could nuke Tokyo, and that would just be a policy difference. That wouldn't necessarily be impeachable, although they could do it. It's a political decision. I guess they could, but they wouldn't, because they would want to preserve the right to nuke other people themselves later. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah, right. I mean, well, that's certainly a consequential subject to discuss because the